Another week in the Sun Belt, another quality opponent. On the road, early kick. We got a lot of challenges ahead of us. Their defensive front is extremely big and talented. They do a nice job with their scheme, creating extra numbers in the run game. Offensively, they've got a dynamic running back, Trey Mentor, and a nice wide receiver in the slot position who's a go-to guy. So we've got our hands full this week. We're going to need a great week of practice and preparation. Obviously, again, anytime you go on the road, especially in this league, and have to play an early kick, you got to do a great job of being focused. And so that's what we're preparing for. And with that, we'll open it up with questions.
Coaches, you guys have gone back and looked at South Al. They felt like they were right on the door, kind of knocking on the door of pulling off a big win, really for their last three in a row. Some missed opportunities in the red zone, just unable to kind of finish the deal. What do you see in them that makes you feel like, hey, they're right there? We don't want to be the ones they reach that tipping point with.
Well, I think you said it. I mean, they played a overtime game with Georgia Southern and really had control of that game for most of the game, and it was in a back and forth battle with ULM, and had that game close late until the fourth quarter, and then really Troy. I mean, they were in that football game, maybe like you said earlier, a goal line stand away from having the lead at halftime. So they know that they're close, and nothing's going to make them more excited than to play on TV at home against a quality opponent. So we know we'll get their best shot. And they've got talented football players. They're just the second year in their schemes, and so it's just a matter of time when it clicks. I think you think back here, I think it was the second year into Scott's scheme in the season when it really clicked. So at any moment they can turn. Obviously, we can't allow it to be against us, and so that's why we have our full attention and focus on them.
In Saturday's game, you were able to get a lot of different guys on the field in the fourth quarter, and they actually really got some pretty significant snaps during that quarter as well. As you and the staff went back and had a chance to watch the film, what were the big takeaways from that group and the time they were able to have on the field in the last quarter?
I've been challenging the staff. We've got to create quality depth. We're only 6 games in. There's a lot of football left to be played. We've played 6 games in 42 days, and we're going to play 3 games in the last 42 days, and now we're going to play 6, potentially 7 games in 42 days. So, we've got to create depth, and it was great to get those guys in. Specifically on defense, there were some guys that got to play. Zarion Hayes, Tyler Bird, both had some good plays. Keyshawn Brown at the strike position. Milan Tucker had a nice tackle. So defensively, we were able to get some young guys in there that we're going to be relying on. Offensively, at the running back position, we're still trying to find that third and fourth guy, especially with the injuries to Cam and to Chop. So it was good to get some guys in there. Obviously, we got to do a better job with ball security, and that's going to be a focus this week.
Final question from me, and this is really more of a logistical question. When you're trying to push tempo in a game, not so much when or how do you go about deciding that, but how do you make those play calls? Obviously time is of the essence. I want to go from the finish of one play very quickly to the next one. Is it like a 2-minute offense where you're calling plays in succession, or does the offense know the places on the field where they should be ready to go and it's already kind of embedded in? How do you actually go through the process of creating that tempo?
That's just kind of a secret sauce we can't dole out. We have a mechanism in place. It's not memorization. We have, whether it's a signal or a code word or whatever it might be, to let them know that when we hit this, that's what we're going to do. So it's similar to like a 2-minute offense, but it's not 2 play calls in the huddle or anything like that. It's there's just a mechanism in place that our quarterback has, and those guys know that we can get this play going as quick as we can.
With the running backs, like you just mentioned, what do you need to see in practice from some of those guys that are the potential third guy in the depth chart to really kind of advance themselves and being that secondary backup to Darrington?
Don't fumble.
That does help. With the ranking, we know how you feel about that. But after the game, you mentioned using whatever you could for motivation. Mm-hmm. I just wanted to know how you differentiate like a national ranking as opposed to a comment that, this could be a statement game from ULM, like it was mentioned during that week? Like, what's the difference there in kind of how you pick to use whatever you use to motivate?
I think it's just the psyche and way in which you motivate people. For me, I'm the type of person that I like to have a chip on my shoulder, so things that make me feel just on a personal level disrespected or whatever, it tends to fuel the fire for me instead of, patting me on the back and saying you're doing a really good job. This is the most praised generation in the history of the world. They've heard good job so many times that it means nothing to them now. It has to be specific praise or specific motivation, and that's just what we're trying to do, is find specific things that we can get to them to try to play at a high level. And I think if you pat somebody on the back too much, then they get comfortable. And I've always been the type of person and have been around the type of teams that constantly find their edge, that constantly have an edge to them, are the teams that play the best. And so we're always trying to find our competitive edge, whatever that might be. And it's not always a disrespect factor. It might be we want to make a statement. We want to perform at our best. And so that's really how we differentiate it. And each week it's a little bit different.
After the game, it seemed like guys are at least confident and believing in what they're doing now at this point in the season. And you're kind of starting to see that on the field a little bit. How do you use that to foster into creating confidence for the players in a positive way, as opposed to it, not turning into like a negative and being overconfident?
Yeah, there's two things. Your confidence comes from your preparation. And whenever you prepare well throughout the week, you're confident in your performance. And, we talk about hope versus expectation. You set the expectations. This is how we're going to expect to play. This is what our expectations of performance are. And then you go meet that expectation. And that's really how you build confidence instead of cockiness and arrogance. And then there's two different things. There's, we talk about we have pride in our program, a personal responsibility and daily excellence. That's every single day. You have to wake up and perform at your best, always compete to be better today than you were yesterday. And then there's another type of pride, which is it's all about me. It's the disease of me. It's what's best for me. And what we have to be cognizant of is when you're playing at a high level and have rankings, then it's all about, well, what's this going to be for me? How does this affect me? What do I get out of this? And when you have those I conversations or me conversations, that's when you have issues. And so what we're all about is the team, and nobody's bigger than the team. And these are team contributions. This is a 1-0 mentality, and whether it's Corey making big plays for us, or Darrington making big plays for us, or Zach making big plays for us, or Virgil coming in making a big play. It doesn't matter, because this team is excited about winning football games. They're excited about what our identity for Appalachian State 2019 football is. And as long as we'll keep that motivation, I don't worry about cockiness. It's just confidence in our preparation and confidence in our performance.
And last one for me. I don't know if you could have forecasted this when you gave George Blackstock his scholarship, but he really has just kind of seemed to pop up all over, at least in these last two games. Mm-hmm. What's that been like for you to watch a guy that kind of earned a scholarship, and he's really popping up here lately pretty frequently?
A couple years ago, I heard Dr. Kevin Elko talk, and he said two things that really stuck with me that stick out about George is the play doesn't care who makes it. If you do your job, you can make the play. And that's kind of George Blackstock. The play doesn't care who makes it. It's just the guy who plays with extreme effort and does his job is going to make the play. And then the other thing he said is the game knows. I think the game's pure, and it rewards people who do things the right way and play hard and give great effort and lives a low-drama life. He's always here. He's not a problem. He's a 3-point-something student. I mean, everything he does is personal responsibility and daily excellence, and the game knows. And the game rewards him. And that's just, I'm not saying I necessarily believe in football gods and all that. I'm not saying I don't, but I think the game knows, and the game is rewarding him right now.
You mentioned last week that the head coach was okay with the win, but the offensive coordinator would have liked to have seen more points.
Yeah.
Was the offensive coordinator a little more happy? And what do you think the difference was?
Well, the offensive coordinator was happy, but then the head coach was pretty upset about the 2 turnovers. So, it's still one of those deals. So, no, I thought offensively we played at times well. but was extremely disappointed with the turnovers. All right, and then we didn't give up any sacks, but that was just because Zach made some unbelievable plays in the pocket. But we had 3 times where we had free rushers on the quarterback on third downs that it is inexcusable. Cannot happen in a 6-man protection scheme. And so those things, as the head coach, have got to get corrected, and got to get corrected in a hurry, because in a tight game, that's the kind of stuff that gets you beat. And those were uncharacteristic for us because we didn't do that the week before. And so that for me is the point of emphasis this week for the offense is don't get caught up in the points. Don't get caught up in the explosive plays. You got to get caught up in, we had 6 penalties, 2 turnovers, and 3 free runners on the quarterback. And that is not winning football at a consistent level. And so that's what's got to get corrected this week.
You mentioned I can't remember off the top of my head exactly how you put it, the everybody gets a trophy syndrome type thing.
I said the most praised generation.
Most praised generation, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned providing that an incentive, I guess, is getting into the top 20 now that you've gone up to 21, I believe, right? Is that something you can use as a motivation? You're getting into the Boise State area, the central. I don't think Central Florida's there anymore, but they were. Is that kind of a motivation that you use?
No.
No.
We're trying to win the Sun Belt Conference Championship in a bowl game with class, integrity, and academic excellence, and rankings don't matter until we get done with the season, and we'll figure out where we're at. But right now, all that is for us is just noise, because they're not giving us 20-something points when we get down to the Mobile. So right now, again, for the alumni, for the administration, for former players and all that, I get it, and I'm proud for them. But for this current team, they ain't giving us anything at the halfway mark of the season. So for us, no. What we're ranked right now doesn't matter. What we're ranked at the end of the season, that's what we're going to sit there and say, okay, this is what's been accomplished. When we have our banquet, we'll talk about all the war stories and all the good successes and all that stuff. But right now we're focused on, this is what we got to do this week, which is to beat South Alabama, a quality opponent on the road that's going to have, they're backed into a corner, so they're going to have a ton of fight, and they've got a great defensive front. They got a solid running game, and that's a recipe for an upset if we don't sit there and take care of business and focus on what we need to do. So no, we're not trying to climb higher in the rankings. We're just trying to beat South Alabama.
Okay.
I'll just ask one or two about South Alabama with their quarterback.
Perfect. Yes. Good.
Just some deep balls I've seen.
Cephas Johnson, from Davidson High School. Recruited him. Recruited the Mobile area when I was at North Carolina State. No Cephas. Got an outstanding family. He's works extremely hard. He's a good player. He does a nice job with his feet. He can create and extend plays, much like the previous 2 quarterbacks that we've seen. But he does throw a nice deep ball. Has against Georgia Southern hit 2 for large or for big gains and touchdowns, and so he's a good quality quarterback, and it's a guy that we've got to do a great job of containing in the pocket and having tight coverage against those wide receivers, which is going to be a challenge because Kwan Baker, like I said earlier, is a really good wide receiver. I mean, as good as anybody else in this league.
And then just defensively, you mentioned some individual personnel, but just kind of what stands out about schematically or just how they kind of operate.
Well, I mean, I think Jordan Beaton is one of the best defensive linemen in the conference. I mean, he's a large human being that takes up space and does a nice job of shedding blocks. And so Bear and Noah, I mean, he's 320 pounds. Noah's 265 on a good day. I mean, that's a lot of weight difference right there. They've got experienced front. All 3 of their down 3 are seniors. So they've been in this scheme. They've played against us. They played against us last year. So again, they play a bear front. They're multiple. They play 4 down and 3 down, but primarily in a bear front. Don't give up deep balls. Make you drive the football the length of the field. So we're going to have to be very disciplined. We're going to have to be very focused on execution.